Good morning, everyone, and we are in Exodus chapter 17. Remember where we were? The Israelites had crossed the Red Sea, had a celebration, and the moment they had a celebration, right after at Elim, they ran out of water, and then they came to another place in chapter 16, and then the water was bitter, and they was having strife, and they called the place Mara. And now we're in chapter 17, and you could see that the one of the things that we will find it difficult to appreciate is they have seen 10 great miracles. The Passover came with the firstborn and with the young ram and the goat slaughtered with the blood on the doorpost and the lintel. And they left and they crossed the Red Sea, and yet they can somehow forget that God is with them. And we struggle to figure out why. So in chapter 15, 16, and now in 17, the Israelites seems to be a people who are continuously without gratitude. And they see miracles and they forget very quickly. So the story now goes, then all the congregation of the children of Israel, congregation would be the assembly. Okay? Of the children of Israel set out on their journey. And the word set out on their journey is literally pull out. Now, I'm not sure whether you're familiar, but people live in tents in those days. And when you live in tents, when you start a journey, the concrete imagery would be to pull out the pentax and lift up the tents, right? So that's what it means by pull out or start the journey. From the wilderness of Sin, according to the commandment of the Lord. So God says, come, let's go. And they came to the next place called Rephidim. Rephidim actually means it is a resting place. That's a name, right? A resting place. But then when they rest there was no water for the people to drink. And then therefore the people contended with Moses. The word contended is a nice English word, but it's not what you think it is, right? It literally means, how should we say? It is like pulling out. It's like breaking camp. It's like the mouth started to move. Okay? The mouths non-stop. The mouth started to yak. That is what this word means by contend. They are complaining, right? And they try to make so much noise because there was no water. But the idea of no water does not mean zero water. It means that the water became to no more. So there used to be water, you drink so much, when time comes, there's not enough water, and then there's no more water. That is what this word actually means. It disappeared by itself. Why? Because people drank and there's no more water. So it says, give us more water that we may drink. And that is their contention, their babbling. Maybe we say babbling, complaining, right? Babbling. So Moses said to them, why do you babble with me? Why do you complain to me? Why do you tempt the Lord? This is a very serious word. The word here is to prove, to nasah, to prove. Why do you want to prove God exists? Why do you want to prove that God will take care of you? You don't have to make noise, because when God wanted to save you, He opened the sea. When God wants to feed you, he will give you manna, like last week. Why do you keep complaining? Why do you keep complaining? And the people thirsted. The word thirsted is they were thirsty, or they were, how should you say? They were fasting from water. If you get the picture, right? They have no water to drink. And so now they are thirsty. And the people complain. Now, this word complain is murmur. This is a different word. This is lun, right? This lun. This lun means to grumble. This one is literally to grumble. This other word here that we were reading, content, is literally, you see everybody, but you actually don't know exactly what's happening, but here you can actually hear properly what they're saying. So they're basically doing the same thing. Why is it have you brought us out of Egypt to kill us and our children, our livestock with thirst? And this is a serious thing. Their complaint is so unreasonable, really. Like sometimes when you have done all the good things to save them, and then actually they complain about not having water. They never complain about being persecuted by Pharaoh. They've been asking God, save me, save me, save me. Now that God has saved them, now they have new things to complain. So Moses cried out to God saying, what shall I do with these people? They're almost ready to stone me. The idea here is they are so angry and says, people are riling them up that when people don't have the basic necessity of food and water, people behave rashly. When you have no water, no food, the whole body composition, the whole thinking pattern is going to be different. In verse 5, you find that the Lord said to Moses, okay, why don't you go on before your people? Go face them. Go face them. And then you take with you some of the elders of Israel. Now, the elders are the old ones. What do you mean, old ones? In the culture, very similar to Chinese culture, when people grow older, that's why you have the phrase, you grow older, you grow wiser. So in the old days, when they grow old, they become the de facto leaders of the clan. And they are the ones that their juniors, their family members, that try to listen to them. Why? Because they've gone through so much hardship and they've survived and they're still thriving. And so these are the elders that became the leaders. And it says, also take in your hand the rod which you struck the river. Which river? The first miracle, the river that turned into blood. And then you go, I will stand before you there on the rock in Horeb. Now the B is a V, Horeb, so you can pronounce it as Horeb. And the rock here is, I would say, a bigger rock, right? A big rock. This would be Zur. Zur would be more of a cliff. It's not just a piece of rock on the ground. It's like a cliff, right? A rock that's sticking out of the ground, maybe. No, big piece that's sticking out of the ground. And said, you shall strike the rock. The word strike here is to beat the rock, right? The word is nakah, to beat the rock. Beat it violently. Like Cain slew Abel. So Cain was striking at Abel with the intent to kill. So that is a kind of an emotion. Strike that rock hard, and water will come out of it that people may drink. Now, one of the things that we may not appreciate from this is think about the geography. This is a big cliff. This is not a real little rock on the ground. A big piece of boulder, probably. And the boulder, somehow water gush out, maybe from under, right? But understand, we're talking about 1 million people. So we're not talking about a trickling stream, right? We're talking about a rushing river. This is what come out of it. This water is a rushing river so that everyone will be able to drink. So Moses did so. You know, did so means can be seen, right? In the eyes of the elders of Israel, in the eyes, right? So he called the place Massa and Mariva. So the word Massa is, I won't say it's temptation. Massa actually comes from the word to despair God. To despair God, to test God. And essentially, we don't have to test God. When we need it, God knows and He will give us. But we despair Him because the people were upset and complained and didn't give God a chance. And they could have come and says, what is God doing? Rather than say, why you want to kill us here? No. The second word, Merivah, is this. Merivah is about strife and contention. It is about, how should you say, quarrel. Quarrel. So this place is where they quarrel with God because they think that God, no, they complain that God let them out of Egypt. They're going to die there, no water to drink, and yada, yada, yada. You know how people nag and complain. And you remember in Hebrew names are always given to remember something that happened or remember a character or in hope of a character because of the contention of the children of Israel and because they tempted God saying that, is the Lord among us or not? Can you imagine? After all this while, they can still worry, is God here with us? Is God here with us? That is sad. Now the Amalekites came. We need to remember, who is the Amalek? Amalek is the name of the son of Esau. Esau had a son named Eliphaz, and Eliphaz had a wife named Timnah, and they had a son called Amalek. This is that Amalek, we believe, that is coming to fight Israel in Rephidim. It's a resting place. And the Amalek decided to come against them. Moses said to Joshua, choose us some men and go out, fight with Amalek. Now this word choose, what is this word choose? Is Bachor or Bachor, Bachar, right? Bachar is like how we go and choose oranges. I don't know how you choose oranges, but this is how I choose oranges. When I go to the fruit shop, I would sit down and they would have about a whole basket of nice fruits, but somehow we will still pick the ones we wanted. And so this is what choose mean to Joshua. Go and choose, select among the men the ones who can go out to fight with the Amalek. And tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. You see, that's the same rod we first started in chapter 6. So Joshua did as Moses said to him. See, all these words did is asa. It all can be seen. And they went to fight with the Amalek. So Moses, Aaron, and Hur, there are 3 persons now, went on top of the hill. And so it was when Moses held up. In verse 11, the idea is lift up high, right? Cause his hand to be high. That's what it means. And you can safely say that he was lifting up his hand, like, stretching out his hand above him. And then whenever he does that, Israel prevailed. The word prevail means what? They were stronger. They were mightier. It's like playing the Nintendo game. When they lift up the hand, when he lifts up his hand, the Israelites managed to fight the Amalek and looks like they are stronger. And then when he got tired and he let his hand down. Let his hand down means he brought it down, settled down to rest. Which means that man's natural pose is at rest. And so whenever he dropped his hand to be at rest, then Amalek was stronger. So you see, this is like a little Nintendo game. You lift up his hand, you win. Drop your hand, you fell. But verse 12, please pay attention. His hands became heavy. Heavy. Same word as, this is kavod. The same word as glory. When you pay attention to your parents, it's honor. But when you lift up your hands, it's heavy. You drop it down. It's also the same word. Heavy. And so what did they do? They means Aaron and Hur took a stone, put it under him and let him sit. So sit down. I guess Moses, old man, needs to sit down. Aaron and Hur, look at this, grasp his hand. Grasp his hand is this word. I would use the word grasp. Grasp your hand and to hold it up for him. So each one side and one on the other side. And once they did that, his hands were steady. Steady. And the word steady here is emunah. And this is important. The word emunah comes from the word aman. It means to be firm, right? To be firm, to be steady, right? This is important, to be firm, to be steady, to be stable. But you know what this word also means? This word actually means truth. It means faith. It means to believe. From the noun side, it would be truth and faith, but to believe is to aman, right? And emunah comes from the same word, steady. If you trust God, you have confidence in him and your life is emunah, steady, right? That's how it means. From the going down of the sun. It's a long time. So Joshua defeated Amalek. The word defeated here literally means to, to bring to the knees. That's defeated. So you remember last time when you fight a war, when you defeat, you lift up your hand, you surrender. That is the word defeat. So defeat is an English word, abstract. The concrete meaning is to come down to the knees and says, okay, I surrender. I cannot fight anymore. Right? That's the picture. Amalek and his people. Now, Amalek is the son of Esau and the descendants, right? With the age of the sword, meaning by the sword, they did that. And finally, they were defeated. Of course, Joshua and the men thought that they were strong, right? But they didn't see the bigger picture with the Nintendo game. Moses on the cliff with Aaron and Hur, each one supporting each side of Moses' hand. Or maybe you can call it the early days of Nintendo. Now we have a short chapter, and in verse 14, the Lord said to Moses, write, katav, write. Write could be writing on a scroll, right? Or to inscribe, and generally this write would be good for a scroll, right? Write a memorial in the book. Now, what book? Sefer is a written document. Okay. In those days, written scroll, or in those days could be a parchment, right? It could be skin, but it's made into a writing document. But write this down as a memorial. What is a memorial? Zikron, memorial. The Passover is a memorial. A memorial is something to remember. Why? Because they are so easy to forget. So this is the first war that you came across, and they won, and they are to write it down. And so Moses is to write it down so that they can always remember. So now when we read it, we are remembering. Remembering means to call to memory. The word recount, to recount means to, what is this? To recount is to put in the ear. Interesting. Put in the ear. The hearing is the ear. But this word is sim, is to put. So the idea of put in the ear of Joshua, the English translation is giving you a nicer phrase, right? To recount it in the hearing of Joshua. Meaning Joshua was down there fighting. Joshua didn't know what happened up there on the cliff. So God says, write all these down so that Joshua will remember. Don't let Joshua think that he is so good and great himself to go and fight and win. God is there. There is Moses up there, right? That I will utterly blot. This is blotting. Blotting is macha. Macha means to wipe out. Now, the imagery of this word is this. When you use some remover, some distillant to blot. So when ink is on the parchment, you use some kind of a solution, a solvent, and then you use your thumb slowly and you rub at it, right? So the ink will melt and will dissolve, and then you can't read it anymore. This is this word here. Okay, this is this word here. Utterly blot is to slowly dissolve and rub it out, and eventually what is going to happen? The remembrance of the Amalek from under heaven. That means that after this war, there'll be the next one, and slowly over time, very quickly, nobody will ever, the core, will bring to, will recollect, recall. Nobody will bring to mind the Amalek. Like now, you ask your Sunday school student, do you know the Amalek? Who? Nobody knows. Nobody anywhere in the world knows unless you read the Bible. And so God says, based on this, it is wrong. Why? Because Amalek is actually a friend of Israel, a relative. They are not Canaanites. They are not Egyptians. They are not from Syria. They are not from Assyria. These are not the Arabians. They are your family. And God was angry with Amalek. I'll tell you this. Because later on, one of Amalek's descendants is called Agar. Right? Agar. And King Agar was at the time of Samuel, 1 Samuel 15. And and King Saul was supposed to kill King Agar, and he didn't. He spared him, and eventually Samuel killed him. But King Saul spared his family. And then after that, we get the Agagite, meaning descendants of this King Agar. And this King Agar is from Amalek, right here. So let me just write it down. Amalek. And then King Agar. And then we have the Agagite. What's the difference? Very simple. Amalek is here, right? Son of Esau, son of Esau by name of Eliphaz. Eliphaz had a son by the name of Amalek. Agar will be 1 Samuel 15, right? Saul was supposed to kill him. This is a king. Agagite would be in the book of Esther. And who do you get? Haman. So you can see that many of these names that we talk about, we actually don't really care. But in this case, you should be able to see over time, Haman's entire family was destroyed. Remember in the book of Esther, all hanged because they wanted to destroy Israel in one day. Had King Saul did his job, well, maybe Haman never showed up. But eventually, when Haman showed up, they were also destroyed. And so this is the fact that they will be utterly blotted out, never to be remembered ever again. And now Moses built an altar. You know, one of the things that you find in the Old Testament, in the book of Genesis, you always find altars, right? Mitzbeach. Altar is just a stack of stones, by the way. And the altar also represents a memorial. Now, the Chinese always say, sakpei, and memorial stones. Actually, the altar here is also memorial stone. They sack it up, and they can actually use it as a memorial, as or as a place of sacrifice. And all their memorial has names. And remember, the names are always with reference to an event, a character, something God did, something God said, and something about God. And so now we have the Lord is my banner. The Lord is my banner has a name, right? The name is Yehovah Nisi. Yehovah Nisi. Okay, let me just give you this. Yehovah Nisi. That's how you pronounce this. And what is Nisi? Nisi is, well, the English is called a banner. I can tell you banner or signal, unless you are in the army or you're with the scouts, with the guides, you won't understand this word banner, right? The word banner is not a party banner, welcome home, which we are used to now, where your politicians will say, happy Christmas or whatever. This is a banner. The banner means is something that is lifted up. Let me give you the explanation. Something lifted up. And guess what was lifted up in this war? Moses' hands, left and right hand, lifting up. And so when he cannot do it, Aaron and Hur each supported his hand. You see that? And they were steady. That would be amunah, that was faith, right? Firm. But banner also means this. It is a sign, ensign. And what is an ensign? A flag. God is our flag. Something that we rally around. And this is to tell to Joshua, because Joshua is in the army. And so that he remember, he was fighting, he didn't see any flag. What flag? Well, the flag is Yehovah. Yehovah Nisi is that Yehovah is our rallying point. It is not Joshua. Joshua is humanly there, but God is the focal point that made this war successful. And he was the one, well, if short of a better term, right? He was the one playing the Nintendo game. and yes, Joshua and people have to fight the Amalek, but the strength came from God. The morale came from God. The focus came from God. So that if you're doing it for God, you are always roused up for God. For he said, because God has sworn that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation, door to door. Generation is door. Door. Door to door. Sounds very English, isn't it? From door to door, one in, one out. And that is what is going to happen. Agar, Agagite, Haman, and King Agar. So all through the history of Israel, they are fighting with the Amalek and his descendants. And God is the focal point. We are fighting God's battle. Tell Joshua, it is not him. Yes, he win this battle, but remember, behind it all, above the hill, there is Moses and Aaron and Hur lifting up the hands of Moses. And then behind that is God. And God is that flag. God is the banner. God is what is lifted up so that everyone fighting can see the banner and they have the morale to charge, to fight, and to stand. That is what we need in our lives as well. When we go through life, we always need to see God as the banner, Yehovah Nisi. And may God be our flag throughout our lives.